Welcome to the IOL Sports Show. It is our third edition, and we've got a fantastic guest in today. It's Wayne Parnell, all the way from Northamptonshire. He's braved the cold weather. He's got a bit of a hoodie on there to warm him up. Welcome, Wayne.
Thanks for having me, Zaahier.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. You know, you travel all around the world these days. We know we can't get hold of you. We can't locate you. We're trying to find a GPS. You go from Pakistan to the Caribbean to Abu Dhabi and now in England. So, how do you find yourself in Northamptonshire at the moment?
So obviously, the last, I think, 12 to 18 months have been really crazy, obviously with COVID and, not being able to kind of move around as freely, playing cricket again. So it is just nice to have things kind of open up a little bit more. And I'm over here playing some county cricket for the next couple of months.
Well, it's, we normally go back we look at your career, we look at how it goes in the past, everything that you achieved. But with you, we need to be very much in the present. You were in quarantine in England, and your wife is evacuating your house in Frido on the mountain in Cape Town. I mean, that's a lot happening in the Parnell household, isn't it?
Yeah, it's obviously been very difficult for me, being over here and them having to deal with that. I kind of feel a little bit helpless, and obviously just checking stuff online, getting sent videos via WhatsApp, seeing big flames close to my property and stuff. So that's been tricky. But also with quarantine, I've gone back a couple of weeks where I had to go to Kenya first. I just spent 10 days there, and then I came over here, and then I was gonna do 5 days initially. And then on the fifth day, the second test of mine came back negative. But with a track and trace that you have to do when you get to the UK, someone on the flight tested positive, I'm assuming. And then I ended up having to do an extra 5 days. So then I spent 10 days quarantine. So I've had snow, I've had a bit of rain here, I've had some sunshine. And then obviously we've had to deal with, the fires back home as well.
Are they safe though? Your wife's pregnant if I'm correct as well.
Yes, yeah. So they had to evacuate. I think it was 2 nights ago. So and they actually went back today, and they had to clean up everything. Obviously with the smoke and the ash and stuff like that. So they've been busy cleaning today. I was actually on FaceTime with them earlier, and my son was very excited that the firefighters were, taking care of everything. So that's gone really well.
What's it like? We hear about people spending time in quarantine, and they, we don't understand actually what it entails. I mean, I did an interview recently with Gary Kirsten, and he spoke about, we actually can't be playing in these bubbles for forever. It's a mental toll on the players, and it's mentally demanding. Can you tell us you spent days in Kenya, then you spent days in England. What's it like to be in quarantine?
Yeah, so it's very difficult, I think, mentally. I'm obviously lucky because I didn't have to do the facility quarantine, which is basically 10 days in a hotel room locked away. That's basically what it is. I was lucky enough that I could quarantine at home, which is slightly better and I suppose a bit more convenient because you have the freedom to kind of move around. But during the T10, that was a hotel quarantine. And even though it was a very nice hotel, it was a 5-star hotel, and obviously we had meals prepared and everything, like delivered outside your room and stuff like that, it's still draining because there's not much you can do. You know what I mean? You obviously speaking to people back home and things like that, and you can't. Netflix is keeping you busy, but I mean, there's only so much TV and stuff you can do because obviously being in a hotel room, it's quite small. So even with like the IPL and like things like that, I think I was speaking to some of the guys who were involved in the IPL in the UAE last year. They said that the team room actually was the most important thing in the whole IPL, for their particular franchise, because being stuck in the rooms and stuff, you want to make people comfortable, so you have a place to kind of go and like unwind and interact with your teammates. And I think just that like routine of knowing that you have to test regularly, and it's been really difficult. I mean, even here as well, like I have freedom, but like we do these lateral flow tests twice a week, so you kind of know that like on this day I want to do a test, and you're also trying to be a little bit careful, like not, even though you are kind of like free to move around, you also don't want to be mixing with too many people, because like, you know, they could have mixed with someone else, and you know, it's just you just have to be careful, and it's mentally a little bit draining, because you have to be careful that you take care of the cricketing side, but not just yourself. You have to be mindful of your teammates and stuff like that, because if you end up testing positive for whatever reason, it then puts the whole squad and the fixture that you're playing in particularly, you know, at risk as well of, you know, being called off.
Wayne, how many COVID tests have you had? Because you've been everywhere around the world over the last couple of while.
I didn't do any tests up until last year, I think October. That's when I did my first COVID test, and I think from that test up until now, I could be on close to 50. I think some guys are on like 100.
Jeez.
So I think,
the one up the nose, you get that one, or is there any other one?
Yeah, so it's been a mixture. Obviously, the PCR test is a more I wouldn't say more invasive, because both of them are invasive, but the lateral flow test is the one that you kind of get the results immediately. That's the one that we have to do every Tuesday and every Saturday for the rest of the season. So yeah, it's kind of become part of the routine. It's just weird having to stick things up your nose and down your throat, though.
Good luck with that, particularly in the Ramadan that you're observing at the moment. So good luck with that. How's that going?
Yeah, it's been fine so far. Obviously, just long hours. Yeah, I think last year I was lucky that I had a fast in South Africa, and that was, I think, it was just about 12 hours, so that was easy. Yeah, we're looking closer to 17, 18 hours, and I mean, you've had the experience of being the side during the fast as well, so you would know those long hours can be a little bit tricky, but conditions and things like that make it a bit more comfortable. You know, the weather is fairly pleasant, so that doesn't you know, make you, especially when you like, especially for me during training and stuff, it's kind of okay. I can like go with it, you know, where when I've had fasts in places like Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, it's been very difficult, because obviously the heat there is intense and the humidity and stuff like that. So it's been going right so far.
No, that is completely. I know when I was there for the 2019 World Cup, we started fasting at 2:30 in the morning and broke our fast at 10 o'clock at night. So it's not for the faint-hearted in England. But Wayne, just back to, you know, your career and what you've achieved. You look at, I don't think many people understand the impact that you've had in T20 cricket around the world. You've played IPL, you've played the Caribbean Premier League, the CPL, you've played Pakistan Super League, you've played the Canadian Premier League. You're one of the most traveled cricketers around the world, and that's something in this day and age that, you know, it's the experiences and the learnings that you do pick up around the world. Can you share with us, in your opinion, maybe in terms of which league is the best that you've experienced, and also what do you take from, how hard is it to adapt walking into a new environment and a new team every single time?
Yeah, so I think just off the bat, I think the best league that I've played in, I mean, they all different in terms of when you go to the Caribbean, there's different challenges there playing there. When I played in the PSL, in the Pakistan Super League, there are different challenges there as well. But the league that I would say is the most competitive and strongest league is probably the IPL. Just purely based on, you know, there's a complete window where there's no international cricket in that window. So every single cricketer is available to, you know, play in that. So you have literally the best of the best, where sometimes with the other leagues, there might be a window where certain countries are, you know, playing. So you might end up missing some of those players there. But then to kind of get to what you were saying about trying to fit in and stuff, like for me, it's about wherever I go, I try and connect with those people from a particular country or like region that I'm in. And I think that's the thing that kind of makes it easy for me to just fit in. I really take time to figure out what their culture is about, what people's backgrounds are. And I think, being mindful of that. And I think maybe I'm lucky because I grew up in South Africa, where we have to be tolerant and where we have so many different cultures and races and, people from different backgrounds. So that's kind of been a great advantage for me, having traveled around the world and interacting with so many different people.
Wait up, and I'm going to take you back to your first IPL, where you were picked up for 650,000 US dollars. I mean, at the time you were 19 years old. The impact that must have had on your life. You just came back from a very successful T20 World Cup, and it's strange to think that you're only 31. It seems like you've been on the cricket circuit for about 20 years, But the reason why I want you to speak about that, because there's another youngster who at the IPL at the moment. He just happens to be a left-arm seamer, and he hits the ball a little bit as well, like you do, Marco Jansen, and who's at the Mumbai Indians, and he's made quite an impression. On within his first couple of games, and he doesn't have the pressure of a 650,000 price tag, but he hasn't played for South Africa. He's uncapped, and he walks into that environment. How did you handle it back then as a teenager, and now watching? What words of advice would you have for a youngster like him right now at Mumbai?
Yeah, so I think being at Mumbai Indians is very lucky. Firstly, because from what I've heard, and also I've been lucky enough to have been coached by Robin Singh, who's been part of that Mumbai Indians core. It's one of the best franchises. It's one of the best run franchises. So, and then also the types of players that they have. There's a lot of experienced players, a lot of international guys, and I think a lot of great guys. If I think of some of the local Indian guys, Rohit Sharma. Obviously, Pandya brothers, Bumrah. These are world-class cricketers. And then also, I mean, you can't look past Kieran Pollard. I think he's experienced, but also I think you'd be a real helping hand as well to kind of make you feel very comfortable, because he's just that type of guy. I was lucky enough to play alongside him at the Cobras for a couple of seasons. I played with him in the CPL as well, and he's such a great guy. He's such a great team guy. He's such a helpful guy. He's like a father figure, So I think Marco will be in great hands, having all of those really good cricketing brains in Mumbai Indians. And also, again, he's got no pressure really. I think it's just about going out and expressing himself. And I think that probably would have started a little bit at the Warriors under Robin Peterson. Trying to just have freedom, trying to express yourself, let your talents kind of go, and be at the front of everything. And Robbie is big on that, and I think Mumbai Indians is probably the perfect franchise for him to kind of have a little taste of the IPL and just kick on from there.
And when you look at your own career, having started so young, playing for South Africa, you were 19 years old. You were basically 15 months out of school, coming from grey high in PE, and the next minute you bowl into the likes of Chris Gayle at the T20 World Cup. And do you feel that things maybe happened a little bit too fast for you, and the expectations on your shoulders at the time were just a little bit too much for a teenager to handle at the time?
No, I don't think that. I think the thing that I think when I had a bad groin injury in 2010, and I think straight after my op, I feel like I kind of just came back too quickly, and it's I wouldn't say that it's affected me that much, but I feel like that particular period I had a really difficult time, and because the expectation, because of what I did leading up to that was so good, if you want to put it that way, that when I wasn't delivering to those standards, that's when the questioning started coming in. And I think it did play on my mind even though again I'm not a big guy into like stats and even like reading things about myself, um, I think subconsciously when you hear murmurs here and there, you kind of take it on board, even though you try and sort of shut it out. The odd thing does get to you and stuff, and you kind of almost doubt yourself a little bit. But I think over the last couple of years, I've really managed to just focus on myself, focus on what I can do well. Obviously, adapting as the game's developed over the last couple of years, and just really try to contribute in my team that I play for. Not just my own performance, but helping other people be better as well. And whereas before I was very much focused on like what am I doing? How am I bowling? How am I playing? You know what I mean? And over the last couple of years, I've kind of taken that pressure off myself a little bit. I'll be like, if I play to my ability, I'll be fine. But what impact can I leave on the next guy, especially the younger guys coming through in every team that I've basically been in over the last couple of years.
So that is the question that I want to ask you. So you look at that T20 record that you have, it's over 200 games, economy of 7.83, 209 wickets. It shows that that you've achieved at the at that level, and you've done very well, and you've created a career for you. And yet you never quite achieved those heights with South Africa and the Proteas. Do you feel that the environment might have not been conducive to you getting the best out of you at the time?
I think it's a combination of things, really, and I think like obviously once you're going through it, you don't really know what's happening, and I think I've played enough cricket. I've been in enough environments around the world to kind of see how like what things work and what things that like don't work. And it's a combination of things where because we had such a really good squad. I think in terms of media and stuff like that, and I think you guys might be to blame there as well. You like there are certain yeah. There are certain guys that kind of get certain labels, and as much as you try and like shake it off, that's kind of the label that you have. I think like it's maybe a bad thing that like it's seen that people can't really grow or change. You know what I mean? Like if you have this label as a youngster, that kind of follows you through your whole career. And again, like I said, I mean, when I was younger, it probably affected me a lot more. When I actually shouldn't have let it get to me as much as it probably did. I think more subconsciously, and it does play on your mind. And you kind of going onto the field, trying to prove that you should be there. Whereas like when you go on the field and you're confident and you feel like you sort of belong, you kind of play better because you have more freedom. And I think that's the thing that you often hear this thing, oh, just go out and just play with freedom. And you often think to yourself, like, what does that mean? And that's really what it means, is like just going out there and like truly believing that you should be there. And I felt at times that I wasn't really backed. Again, I might be completely wrong, and I hope I am, but there were times where I felt like I wasn't really backed because like you understand. And again, you have to fast forward to go back. Having gone through all this process of having played everywhere and stuff like that, and having played many games and understanding cricket better, you feel like, oh, this period, yeah, like this didn't happen. I don't feel I was back in that period, and but again, like for me, I don't like I think this could have been better, that could have been better. It's all happened for a reason, and I'm just thankful that I'm still playing professionally today.
Funny, there was a perception that so you always that guy with a different hairstyle, the one with a ponytail, whether it's a silver, whether it's a silver fox, the white lightning look, or the designer beard, that maybe Barney was more interested in the off-field things than the actual cricket. Do you think that was an unfair label that people pinned on you?
Oh, definitely. It's funny because I actually have these conversations with my wife all the time. when other players and stuff have time off, they play golf, for instance, and that's perceived to be like the normal, day off from cricket activity. But if I want to take photos of things because I'm into photography, then that's seen to be a distraction because I'm not focused on cricket. So that's the weird thing that I'm still figuring out. Or if I was part of a book club, maybe then it would be seen as being a bit weird. Yeah, so there's a lot of like stereotypes and things like that. But again, like I said, when you're younger, you let these things get you. I'm very comfortable with who I am and the things that I like. And again, ultimately, life is short. So be yourself. And I mean, I can't be doing these things when I'm in my 40s and my 50s. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have to tone it down. So getting all of the crazy hairstyles and beards and everything out now in my 20s and my early 30s.
So I'm glad you brought your wife into this conversation. How does it feel that the fact that your wife, Aisha Baker, Baked Online, is more famous than you, that she's got more Twitter followers than you, and at least Instagram followers? How does that dynamic work in the Parnell household?
No, I actually love it because now when we go out somewhere, most of the time people are saying hi to her. Whereas previously it was, if I'm sitting somewhere and eating or I'm having a coffee somewhere, then people would come up and like chat, which is fine. But like now I know I'm like, oh, this is not for me. I just carry on. You know what I mean? So no, it's fine. I don't think there's any jealousy or anything like that in my household. I think we have a space where we really support each other. We really want the best for the other person. And I think that's kind of the thing, like, if she says maybe like, oh, she can't do this, and I'm like, no, you can definitely do this and you should do it. And vice versa, where I've maybe doubted myself in a certain avenue, she's like, you know what, actually you can do this, you should do this. And I think that's a thing that like kind of pushes you and like kind of makes you realize that, what, there's actually more to me than just this like cricket player. Even with like if I go back last year, just doing some commentary work as well, it was actually her idea. So I was just sitting watching the MSL and she was like, why don't you try and find out who's running this thing and see if you can get involved with it. So I was like, okay, cool, let me try it. But I was like, I actually had all these reasons why I shouldn't do it. And then she was like, no, like you'll be fine, do it. And I ended up doing it and I actually really enjoyed it. So those are the things with like you actually need people close to you to like kind of push your buttons and kind of push you into avenues where it's a little bit uncomfortable, but there's a lot of potential for positive growth there.
We're glad though to see that you won't be in the commentary box this season. You actually back at Newlands and turning out for Western Province. How did that come about, and what can we expect going forward?
Yeah, so I was probably gonna play a couple of games for the Cobras last season, but things kind of didn't align. And I mean, I've had chats with Ashwell Prince, who's obviously coaching there over the last few months, actually probably closer to a year, just trying to figure out what the sort of best move is, what the right move is, and stuff like that. And I think certainly he's, well, I say this, but hopefully he's been a fan of what I've done on the field over the last couple of years. Prior to him obviously taking over and when I was there before leaving. Yes, and it's obviously going to be really nice playing at Newlands in the Western Province colours. I think one of my sort of first cricketing memories was I was at the under 11 or it was the under 13 provincial week, which was in Cape Town. I think it could have been like 2001 or 2002. And we went to go watch Western Province play against Newlands. Western Province play against Northwest at Newlands, and that was amazing because obviously it was kind of one of the first white ball games that I watched, and it was under lights, and it was just such an awesome feeling. So hopefully, in the next year or two, you can have a couple of youngsters coming to the games and watching that, and in 10 years' time, you'll be having a conversation with them.
And I mean, we talk about in 10 years' time, though, it looks like your side has turned the clock back 10 years. You've got you got Hashim Amla back in there. You got Werner Verlander back in there. What's it like to be joining up with a manna again, so to say? With all those guys.
Yeah, I think maybe that's the one thing that's been lacking in the Cobra side over the last couple of years. It's just the experience. I think they have a lot of good youngsters. I mean, George Linder has gone to a completely different level. Kyle Verreynne has gone to a completely different level. And obviously guys like Hamza, played a couple of test matches. So that's and Tony DeZorzi's come down from the Titans. I think that's a nice little core there. You got a couple of young bowlers as well, Moreki, Berger is there as well. So there's a good mix, but I think having talent is one thing, but you kind of need the older heads to guide that. So, I mean, what more can you say about guys like Hashim and, Vernon? Very, very experienced guys, very accomplished players, with great stats and with great cricket knowledge. And I think that's only going to be good for Western Province, because ultimately you want everyone to do well, but it's going to be a case of, somewhere through the season, some people are not going to do that well, but you still have to give good stuff, and I think cricket wise, having played so much, even if we're not performing on the field, hopefully we can help out off the field as well.
To catch up with you, to see a kid that from Boyson's Park in PE back, all the way back then, having come this far, to go out to the Barbados Tridents, the Abu Dhabi T10 champions, all these wonderful things. There's many people who still believe that you have unfinished business in South African cricket, and we look forward to seeing you in the blue and white at Newlands this coming season.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.